And anybody who does that, I know, works the program, because the program is spiritual. And with that, I would like to introduce Syndey from California.
My name is Syndey, and I'm an addict.
Hi, Syndey.
First, I want to thank the Chicago Convention Committee, Program Committee, for having me here today. It's a privilege. But I want to tell you something, that as much of a privilege as it is, you people that I have known throughout the years, the different states that I have been to, your homes, the nights we sat up until 5, 6 in the morning rapping, and the love that we shared, that is the greatest privilege I have received in Narcotics Anonymous. You know, when I came off of the plane, I didn't know who was going to meet me. And whoever they had there to meet me didn't know what I looked like. They said, someone with black hair. Great description. I get off of the plane, and it was crowded. Man, that airport was something else, right? And there is this guy in his hands, trying not to be obvious, shaking it back and forth, was our basic text. I pointed my finger at him, and he pointed his finger at me, and I knew I was home. I'm not going to go into a lot of the war stories. We all know that. I'm just going to take you back a little bit. When I first came into the program, in the middle of August 1975, my eldest daughter, Robin, brought me into a hospital in California. I don't remember getting there. I literally believed I was dying, and I was. And I remember waking up the next day, and I said, my God, I'm in heaven. Everything was white walls, you know, the whole thing. But I'll never forget what I felt like. To go back a little, I used drugs for 25 years, every single day. I had never missed a day. My drugs of choice were pills, scripts. I used many other drugs, but the pills I started using that 25 years ago. And I want to tell you that by the time I hit that bottom, I had been on, for the last 5 years of my using, 150 to 200 pills a day. And I shouldn't be here alive. I really believe what kept me alive was that at one point, when I started to break out in second-degree burns all over my body where my skin was peeling off, because I was using booze with it, that I had stopped using the booze because it interfered. I knew it interfered with the drug. I remember telling the doctor I was allergic to some cleaning fluid. Yeah. Always had it in the back of the mind. If I let someone know how much I was using, I knew that somehow I was going to have to do something about it. You know, there were many times I would ask myself, maybe you're using too much. And slowly, without even thinking, thought would like float away. That was it for 25, it always go away. I can't tell you the horror of that bottom. And I often think that it's difficult for me to articulate the horror of my kicking. I don't know which was worse. They say that if you look into a drug addict's eyes and you talk about hell, that only another addict knows what you're talking about. It was hell. I weighed a little over 90 pounds. All my life I'd been like a size 10. I was like a size 5 with safety pins. You could see the skeletal part of my body through my skin. What it did to my mind was the most frightening. I don't think I was that afraid of dying, but what it did to my mind, the paranoia. You know, I don't think I'll ever forget that paranoid feeling. I remember I had bottles, thousands of bottles of empty pill jars, you know, the script bottles. And the paranoid was that I couldn't throw them out because supposing the garbage man who picks up the garbage saw how much I used, or worse still, my neighbors would see how much I had in there, right? The night before I knew I was coming to the hospital, because what had happened that evening was that I rolled out of bed. I couldn't move. I rolled out of bed, and lying on my stomach on the floor, I just cried out, "God, help me." And I knew this was it. And I had all these pill bottles, and I'm going crazy, supposing someone finds them when I go into the hospital. So I took them, and I had 2 huge garbage pails, you know, the plastic bags, filled with the empty bottles. Called up a friend, and at 2 o'clock in the morning, comes by, because I told her to come by at 2. The neighbors would be asleep. And filled up the bags with the pill bottles, tried stuffing them into a suitcase. It wouldn't close. Tried squeezing it into the car. Had to drive me miles away to a market where they had those bins where you threw all the garbage in. Stood up on some wooden boxes, pulled out the garbage, put the bags of empty bottles down at the bottom, covered it up with garbage in case the fuzz were watching. They wouldn't think that I had just put something in there, and left. That is how pitiful. The nightmare of that paranoia. And I couldn't do anything about it. September the 8th, 1975. I was in detox, by the way, for 2.5 weeks. But that September the 8th, they took me to a 21-day program, which was across the street. And that was the first day of, in 6 more days, 9 years being clean. And when I think back to those days, and thank God for the newcomer that walks into these rooms, because I tell you what you do for me. You remind me, first of all, that it's still not working out there. And then you remind me of what I felt like those first days. And the miracle of this program, to know that we are given a gift of life, this incredible gift that I could live my life again, is so incredible. I have a love and I have a passion for Narcotics Anonymous I cannot tell you. How could you not love a program that gives you back your life? That first year was a nightmare for me. I had moments of reprieve. I spent my first 10 months in complete depression. I woke up one morning, someone told me to work a step, right, that I had been avoiding. I worked some steps, I took some action, and a miracle happened. I woke up the next day and I wasn't depressed for the first time in God knows how many years. And I held on to that. If it happened once, maybe it can happen again. And I must tell you that today, I cannot remember when I have last been depressed. I do get certain feelings. I can get angry. I can have a moment of fear, a moment of being irritable, whatever. And I am grateful when I have it, because what it does, it reminds me, my God, that's how I was all the time. I lived my whole life like that. I did nothing except, if only about the past, if only I had done this, if only I had done that. And I did nothing except worry about the future. And what I found in Narcotics Anonymous is a way where I can live for today. I don't take it for granted. I'm going to take it back a little bit, and I'm not going to stay long on it, because there is where a great deal of this happened, before it happened, my being an addict. I was born in New York City, and I had 2 sisters, a brother. My parents came over with the mass group of immigrants that came over, that left in the early 1900s their countries to find freedom from persecution because of religion. My parents, myself, were Jewish. My father was very, very religious. He was a Chazan in his time. And a Chazan is the man that sings the prayers at temple. He escaped from Russia through the underground to get over to America, because at that time they were taking the Jews and they were sending them to Siberia. And they had an underground where they would get the men out. They were taking all the young men, married men, it didn't matter. And he left my mother there with my 2 older sisters. 8 years later, he was able to send for my mother and sisters. That's why there's such a great age difference between my sisters and I. They were wonderful people, but they had been brought up a certain way. They never had a concern of whether they were treating their children right, or is this the proper way for them to grow up. Dr. Spock was a glint in someone's eye somewhere, and psychology was something you didn't talk about because you were nuts. From what they were, they brought their children up and were very critical and judgmental. I never did anything right, and I was never as good as anyone. I know you've all had it. Why can't you play the violin like your cousin Helen? Why can't you get grades? I had 2 cousin Helens. Why can't you get grades like your other cousin Helen? But this wasn't everything. Along with that was every single day that I can remember, I was brought up and I heard, God is going to punish you for this. And so I was brought up with a vengeful God. A God that I knew was there because my parents said that they were there. But everything that happened in my life that went wrong, I blamed on God. And because of this being very critical and judgmental, what happened was that I became a person with these terrible feelings of inadequacy, never feeling better than, always less than, very shy, painfully shy, and always for the rest of my life after that, up until I was 50 years old when I came into the program, trying to overcompensate for those feelings of inadequacy. And so what happened was that I began to build this image, this image that would keep me from feeling this pain inside of myself. And the image wasn't enough because that was an external thing. And I felt that when I took the drugs, man, I had the world by the tail. I had a romance with those drugs that lasted 25 years. But they stopped working. I want to talk about something now that is very, very painful for me. But in talking and sharing about this, what I will be able to do is share my experience of recovery in Narcotics Anonymous, this magnificent gift. 21 months ago, my daughter Leslie died. I know. And she was 29 years old, and it all happened in one day. She woke up in the morning, and she was screaming with pain. She had pains in her stomach. And I rushed her to the hospital. We were there for 5 hours. They took every test imaginable, and they couldn't find out what was wrong. They made an appointment for the next day with a specialist. And I took her home, and a few hours later, she died in my arms. You know, for years I've been telling my babies, you will never experience anything as terrible here, clean, in the program of Narcotics Anonymous, as you did out there using. I was wrong. Up until that time, I had 7 years at the time. That had been true. But I did not think that I could live through the pain and the anguish and the loss. I did not think that a human being could live through feelings, through the loss of a child. But I'm here to tell you that I know one thing, if nothing else, and that is that no matter what happens to us out there, that we can stay clean in Narcotics Anonymous and not use, no matter what. Let me tell you about the fellowship. My sponsor and my old man sponsor came over that evening that we were at the hospital. And my sponsor stayed with me for a week at the house. I couldn't move. I sat on the couch in a corner, slept there. I don't remember eating. I did not eat or sleep for 2.5 to 3 weeks. They tried forcing, a little food down on me. I did nothing but pray. The one thing that I had worked so hard for those 7 years, that I wanted more than anything, was a faith that no matter what happened to me, this loving God that I have come to know in Narcotics Anonymous would help me go through it. Addicts from all over came to our home. Every moment of the day and night, there were 20, 30, 50, 100 addicts there in the home. Not one of them even had to say anything. They just sat there. And I knew I was not alone. We all know what it's like to be alone out there. I was not alone. And I'll tell you another thing. I felt God's presence in that room, in our home. And God was weeping for Leslie's loss as much as I was. because there were two questions that were asked of me. One was, do you feel like using? And the other was, do you still believe in a loving God? I want to tell you my reaction to wanting to use. At first I was enraged, and I understood something. I understood a little bit more about love and loving. And that when we truly love, we don't destroy. If love is truly God, this loving God that I had come to believe in this program, then God would not want me to take my life that he had given to me to have again. There was a book written that a friend had given me. And in this book, it was about a rabbi who lost a child. And a few weeks after Leslie died, I was reading this book. And in it he talked about, and here is a religious man, a man so close to God, a spiritual man. And he could not understand how this loving God that he had come to believe in could take his child. And what I read there was a reaffirmation truly of what I had learned on this program, what I believe. You see, all my life I had blamed God for everything wrong that happened to me. You know, I would hold my fist up. One more time God was punishing me, what I heard as a child. When I came into this program, I no longer had to believe that it was God. What I realized, what this rabbi realized, was that life is here. Life happens to us. The very things that allow us to live on this planet, gravity, can also take your life. If you go up into an airplane, the plane crashes, has to come down. Those are life's forces, nature's forces. You know, you have some people that are born with some handicap, without arms, without sight. What is it? One gene, one sperm, one out of thousands of nature's way of working. And you have a child that is born misformed or handicapped. I hate that word, handicapped. And it was this very thing that reaffirmed, because this is what I believe. I always told my babies, you meet life on life's terms. And this is what this was. And I'll tell you that I began, after 7 years, to understand that first step of what it means to be powerless. And why I was so in fear of that first step. Easy to say, I'm powerless. I used to say it 1,000 times. Because when I am powerless, I lose control. I have no control over my life, your life, our life. Nothing. And to know that you cannot go back and change it or do anything about it, that is powerlessness. You know, some months ago, I said to Bobby, I said, I think a part of me has died. And what really died, what I have discovered, especially this past years, and all the times that I have shared with you, and I remember saying to you at other meetings, something is happening. I can't articulate it very well, but I know something is happening. And what was happening, this part of me that died, was that self-will that I had thought I had so greatly turned over to a loving God and was letting His will prevail in my life. That self-will is the most difficult thing for me to give up, because something in me, that sick ego that I am left with when the drugs are taken away, still wants me to believe that I can do it my way. I want to talk for a moment about the second step. Of the insanity that we are restored from. One of the things that I was aware of when Leslie died was how easy it would be to be bitter for the rest of my life, and I didn't want that. My love for my daughter was so strong, I didn't want anything negative. Was this all that the love for my daughter would mean, was me to be embittered into self-pity for the rest of my life? Then I would feel that there was no love. The insanity for me, because I remember the anger, this incredible anger when I screamed out at life, and wanting her back. And I knew that I couldn't go back to that there was no way for that. And this faith of knowing that this loving God would allow me to live my life with some kind of respect that we find here in Narcotics Anonymous, with some kind of dignity that I had never known in my life until I came to this program. If I truly loved, then this is not what I would want, to go back into that self-pity, that degrading kind of feeling that I came in with. The second step is a step that very few of us know how to wait. I know that many people will say to me, they're waiting for God to restore them to sanity, right? I said, if all you're going to do is just wait, you'll still be waiting. Because what Greg said last night is very true. Every step is an action step. They say, and you may hear, there are a few action steps. No, every step has the action that must be taken. I believe that God will do 99% of it for us, but we've got to give that one full percent. And that full percent is incredibly large. We have to do that. The insanity that I came in with, the insanity of using, the insanity of my thinking. I want to tell you a little story. Near my home there's a park. And one day I went out, one of the dogs, ex-dogs we used to have, take him for a walk. I'm walking in the park and I see this woman looking in the ground, in the grass for something. She was on the program, and I went over, I said, hi, how are you? Fine. Did you lose something? She said, yeah, I lost it. I said, oh, I'll help you find it. Let's get down on the ground, and we'll look for it. We start in this one little place. Next thing I know, 15 minutes later, we're down like a half a mile. And I said, well, my God, what are we doing here? I said, do you know exactly where you lost them? She said, yes. I said, where? She said, in my house. I said, in your house? What are you doing here looking for the keys? She said, the light is much better here. I hope the laughter was for identification, because you tell me, sounds irrational, that story, doesn't it? You tell me how much more irrational it is for a dope addict to go out and pay someone money so they could give them dope so they can kill themselves. Is that any more rational than that story? That was my thinking. I could give more rationalizations and excuses for why or why not, and none of it made any sense. That was the kind of insanity I had to be removed from. Fighting the steps when I first came in. I know we all do that. One thing I did have, I had a willingness. I didn't want to die anymore. That I didn't want to do. But I still balked and I still screamed. And I'd turn to my sponsor and I'd say, I don't have to go to a meeting tonight. Total insanity. You know. Thank God for my fourth step, my fourth and fifth step, because it was there that I was able to see the insane patterns, the patterns that brought out my character defects. And the sixth and seventh step in character defects, that's another step that everyone waits. You wait for God to remove. I love these steps. I love the sixth and seventh steps because they give me the freedom that today, given one day, with God's help, I don't have to live out that character defect. That's where I get the peace. That is where I get the serenity. That is where my faith is allowed to nurture and grow. You know, someone said, how do you work the character defect? What do you do with the character defect? I said, it's easy. Because she had just come to me and she said, I can't stand this feeling of guilt I keep getting. I said, easy. Don't do anything that makes you feel guilty. No wonder I was depressed all those years. If I am selfish, and if I discover this character defect of selfishness, I must then practice being selfless. If I am living in fear and experiencing this fear, this paralyzing fear that we all know, then I must learn to practice faith. And I must tell you that everything has to be practiced. Practice and practice and practice until the new way becomes as strong as those character defects were. The eighth and ninth step I swore I would never do, especially to my ex-old man. How dare they tell me to make an amends? Don't they know what he did to me? I made it, and I am glad I made it. Because one more time, I began to experience a freedom. You know, someone thinks that there's a magic wand here, some of us. You know, we want freedom, we want peace, we want serenity, we want the gifts, we want. These things have to be earned, and that means working and living the steps of Narcotics Anonymous. If you work and live the steps, you're able to work and live the traditions of Narcotics Anonymous. And with that, we then begin to understand and are able to live the principles of Narcotics Anonymous. It is a gift, a beautiful gift. And those amends means that I must make restitution. You know, one of the insanities, by the way, when I said I must, I realized, did you ever have anyone come over to you and You give them directions, work this step, do this, go to the meeting, help clean up, and they look at you and they say, it's suggested only. You may suggest what I should do, but let me tell you what I must do. I must write a fourth and a fifth. I must work on my character defects. I must make the amends. I must give away what was given to me so freely. Because that is what keeps, I believe, and I know keeps me here. Through ever and whatever life puts in front of us, to know that today I can find some joy in the midst of anguish. What a gift this is. You know, I have asked myself around last year it was, how am I going to live? It's never going to be the same. How do I live with the pain and the loss? I knew in time that if I did what I was supposed to be doing every day, that God somehow would show me. And I was looking for some answer. I should know better. But I was looking for a way. I knew something would happen. 2 weeks ago, after I had just spoken somewhere, and I was sitting and sharing with some of the people in the fellowship, some of us addicts, and I said, my God, it's so simple for me right now. Not life. But what I was looking for, all this time I am looking for, I don't know what, maybe lightning to strike, a flash of light. Someone is going to let me know. God will let me know. And I realized that what I was looking for was something that I was doing for the last 21 months. I was actually living. I was living with the pain and with the anguish and with the loss. How incredible, so simple, and for me, so profound. Because it is that simplicity, to be able to live our lives one day at a time with a kind of dignity that we never experienced out there. And no matter what happens, without drugs. What an incredible gift that is. You know, the 10th and 11th and 12th step, my maintenance steps. You know, the 10th step, I went into a 10-year depression when I found out that procrastination was sloth. Right? I'm told to do a 10th step every night. When I had around, I guess I was 3 years clean, 4 years. I mean, I could not get that discipline. I was so undisciplined. So I wrote a 10th step for 3 years every night. I don't say that everyone has to do this. This is what I did for myself because I know what a sleaze I am. You know, I don't want to do something, I'll get out of it. Never had trouble doing the things I wanted to do. It was the same thing with spirituality. When everything was going good, it was so easy to be spiritual. But I wrote that 10th step every night. Today, I love doing it. 15 minutes, 20 minutes an evening assures me one more day of the promises of this program. And I can't tell you how many hours I use just to cop. Isn't it amazing? All the things that I did out there, all the inconveniences, all the pain that I went through out there. And I came into the program, and by the way, I went to any length to get what I had to get. Didn't matter what time, where it was, or anything. I came into the program, they told me I had to do these things and I may go through pain. That's the insanity. I didn't want to go through pain all of a sudden. Out there, I go through pain to die. In here, they tell me I can have pain and you can live. That's my insanity. The 11th step, my prayer and meditation. I'm glad you don't ask me which step I love the most. They're all important and have to be worked in order. They must be worked in order because each step prepares you spiritually for the next step. The next step will not work. It eventually will not work if I am not spiritually prepared, if I have not worked the other steps to prepare me for that step. And the 11th step of my prayers, and I still have in my John, where my old man put a red telephone that I finally had turned down because it was the only place I had where I could lock the door. And that time is my time for my prayers in the morning and every evening and my meditation. And 15 minutes of meditation for me is more than 1,000 external gifts that you can give me out there, because those things don't last out there. And what I have in here does. I believe that. My 12th step. I love the 12th step because what it allows me to do, at first it was for selfish reasons. They told me, you can't keep anything unless you give it away. Okay, so when I came into the program, and I had 6 months, I hadn't worked the steps very well because I went around like an idiot. We had very few addicts in Southern California at that time. I went around asking, how do you work the steps? I could relate to Martians more than I could to you people, talking about steps and all these things that I didn't understand. And I didn't get any answers. And I went in and I told these people, I want to be of service. We were just starting to form an area, Narcotics Anonymous, 9 years ago, in our area. And they looked at me and they said, that you work your steps. You clean out ashtrays, you get to a meeting, and if there's one chick there that has 1 day less than you go over to her and you tell her that she can make another day because you made it. And that's what I had to do. They were tough, these old oaks. And my babies do it. Man, they go to a meeting, they don't go talking to the men. No offense, men, we love you. Okay? They don't. They go over to that chick, that newcomer that's sitting there, and I keep telling them, remember, just remember how you felt that first day you came in, because I still remember, and that was given to me. And we give it away, because I know I won't keep it unless I give it away. And I don't ever want to forget what it was like that first day. Then they looked at me, these old dope fiends, and they said, besides, you have nothing to give away. So I don't let my babies get into, quote, higher echelons of service. Not until they work through those first 12 steps. Because the only thing that any of us can give away, if we have not worked and lived those steps, is total insanity and ego, pride, and power. Sitting here laughing on the outside, dying in the inside, the pain. I found out you don't die from pain. You die from using. So I really believe that the 11 steps prior to the 12 steps prepare us spiritually to be able to give away recovery in the programs of Narcotics Anonymous. I want to say a few things to the newcomer. When I came in, I had this incredible image. It was so difficult for me to ask for help. Asking for help was a weakness. I felt less than. I felt I should know more, especially the age that I came in. And I had to learn. I had to learn how to put out my hand. I had to learn that I by myself cannot find recovery in this fellowship. That together, you and I, no matter how much time you have or I have or anyone has, as long as we are here to help each other, we can find recovery. Last night you saw there were not that many addicts that stood up for a long time, a long clean time. What I would love more than anything is for one day to see that when they do call 20 years, that 3/4 or 90% of this here really stand up. And that is why I talk about the steps and the steps and the steps. Work them, live them. They are so deep, you have no idea the journey you are about to begin. It is incredible. Nothing. You will find it nowhere. Psychiatrists, education, only here in these 12 steps do you find the promises. And those promises are all internal things. It has nothing to do with old man, old lady, cars, jobs, nothing to do with it. It has to do with what happens to you inside. Because I know, and I know you know what you felt like inside when you came in here. That's what lasts. I want to tell you a dream that I had. I think I had around 2.5 years at the time. I can't quite remember. I'd been working on my 6 and 7 steps, and I was struggling with greed. I didn't believe I was greedy. I didn't understand it. I thought I was a very giving person. This night, I dreamed I was walking to a little house that was all lit up, and this side of me was a stranger, a gentleman. I didn't know him, and I did not know his name. But I looked at his face, and he had this beauty and love and compassion about him that I didn't quite understand, because I had never experienced it, not as I saw him. We walk into the house, and there's another man. And inside the house it was all lit up, and it had shelves all around with these magnificent gifts. I thought were gifts. And the man, as we entered, says, "Take anything you want. Any of the gifts that you want. They're all yours. You don't have to pay for anything. Just take whatever you want." My eyes got wide. I looked over at this man, and I expected him to be shaking his head. But there I saw him again, and his face still was filled with this love, compassion, understanding, made no sign at all of disapproval of me. As we walked in, the first thing this loving man, does, at the bottom of the shelf there's a little box, a carved box. and he hands me this box. And I'm holding it. This other man hands me this large paper bag. I take that. I go around and there are diamonds, and I grab the diamonds and I put them in the paper bag. There's a car, a real size car. I take that off the shelf and put it in the bag. There's a fur coat. I take that and put it in the bag. There are all these things, gold, I mean, you name it. I keep looking over at this man. He's still looking at me. No judgment. Filled with love. And we walk outside. I turn around to take a look at this house with the man there. And they're gone. And I go to the paper bag, slyly looking at the side, you know, at this guy here, this dude that doesn't seem to care, but it's okay. I go into the bag to take out all these beautiful things that I had, and there was nothing there. All that was left was a little box that this man had given me. I opened up the box. I mean, didn't understand, you know. I opened up the box, and inside is this beautiful carving. And I look at this man again, and I saw a look on his face. To this day, I remember. You talk about a love, a compassion. And it was not love for just one individual. You felt it encompassed every human being. For this little box had been made by one of his loving children. And the dream ended. I woke up and I said, my God, I have never felt that kind of feeling that I had in this dream. But little was I to know that one day I would experience that love that this man showed here in Narcotics Anonymous that I share with you. That was the dream. Those were the feelings that stayed with me. And of course, the very obvious thing of the dream was, man, I knew those things out there didn't count. They can be taken away. Another human being that we love can be taken away. The gift that we get, that I have received, is a loving God that will help me, that no matter what happens out there, that I can live my life without using drugs. And I want to say to all of you that I love you all very, very much. You all, the person that walked in here last night, that one day, and so many of you that I have known for years, you helped me and you helped heal me. God bless you. I love you.